All right, y'all. Today I've got some of my 91 grapefruit crosses that are starting to show their sex, so I want to get rid of the males. This time around, we're not keeping the males. We are only keeping the females. We're also going to be going over some of the way that I top dress. It's not necessarily the way I always do it. Each one kind of varies. This particular time that we're going to be top dressing, since the plants are still so young and we're in the vegetative growth, we're in the pre-flower, right? Because they're starting to show sex, so we know what they are. But we're going to give them just a little bit of veg nutrients. Again, I kind of measure with my heart. Less is more. Try to keep my eye on it. Across the board, most people would say that autoflowers tend to be on the wanting less nitrogen and they don't need quite as much. So I do tend to top dress a little bit less than maybe what it's recommended. Just keep an eye on it. You know, there's a lot of easy ways. You know, I'll use this to top dress it. And then, you know, if we have to use some sort of water-soluble stuff, again, keeping with the organics, so there's a lot of different stuff that you can do, ferments and whatnot, but we're not going to be getting into any of that. I'm going to show you how I top dress my plants in my earth boxes early on, just before I terminate my cover crop, put new moon cover on there to, you know, ride out the rest of the duration of our growth here. It's going to be super easy. We're not getting into too crazy in depth. I'll make another video for later on what I do for flowering, and I feel like I should do one for my water solubles as well. Maybe go over how an earth box runs one of these days. I think that would be definitely a valuable video. So we're just going to get into it really easy. Let's come down here. Let's check the plants out, see what they're at, and we'll go from there. Since we know we've got two females here, but this is the female that I would like to keep, we're going to go ahead and take this bad boy and chop him right down from the stem. Now, I do like to mulch everything back in, so from what it came, it's going to go back. So we'll just cut this up and put it right back into there. We're also going to take our boy over here. Even at this small bit of a plant, it's smelling really, really good. I use New Moon's covers. You can get with 2 or even, I don't know if he does 3, but I know for certain there is 2. The one that I have only has a slot for 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to cull the smaller of the female. Not as much fragrance off of her, but still a little something there. We've now culled down to our 1 female. You can see I've mulched all this in. And then what I'm going to do is I'll come in and we're going to really, really aggressively cut this down as small and down to the roots, down to the soil. I don't want to pull up on it because I'm not trying to aggravate any possible roots that maybe this has. And of course, I try to run as no-till as possible as you can in an earth box. So I don't want to be pulling up that soil and aggravating it in any kind of way. So we are just kind of trimming up the top. I'll really kind of pull, maybe twist, just to kind of mat everything down. So once I cover this up, all this plant material that we have left is going to just mulch into there. It's going to create a nice humus layer. It's going to build our soil, right? So this is all going to decompose. We've got worms in here, so those worms are going to come up, start working on everything. Let's get the rest of this grass trimmed up. Now, it's not grass. I just say grass because that's I always feel like I'm cutting a lawn whenever I get in here to do this. Again, all we're doing is chopping it down low. Chop and drop, as they would call it. The New Moon covers, they block out a lot of light, but I have noticed that sometimes if there's just enough light that's coming in from one of the sides, it'll still allow some of it to grow. I want to chop this down as low as possible. And there we go. Whenever I chop my plants down, like I said, the no-till way that I like to do it is I will just remove wherever the stalk is. So after I chop the plant down, it gets put off to the side. We plant some cover crop and it stays there until we're ready to use it again. And by then, usually most of these larger roots have started to decompose and I'm able to just kind of pull it out just at that. And we've got our little peat pod that we, grow everything in. We just break it all down. I'll take all that out. And there we go. The next part here that we're going to do is I am currently using Craft Blend by Build a Soil. This is my preferred as of right now. I've had this same 5-gallon bucket for quite some time, and I just want to work through it. I can't remember exactly what it is they recommend on the feeding. Again, I am measuring with my heart. I probably could go a little bit more because we're terminating all of this. Obviously, this is going to mulch in there. That's some sort of nutrients that the plants will eventually get to. So I'd rather err on the side of caution. The autoflower's life cycle is so short that being heavy on vegetative nutrients may not always be the best option. So I tend to go light, again, because I am doing no-till, and I like to run these as long as I can until I fill them up, and then we dump them out. But I always like to be giving back. I think if I was to go that route where we're only giving bloom nutrients, as some people recommend, may not work quite as well in this scenario. We want to keep a well-balanced ecosystem within here. So we give them just a little bit. And like I said, I do it very light. I probably could do a little bit more, but I'm not going to. We just give it just a little bit. They still look happy. But again, a lot of this with organics, it takes time for it to break down. This is not water-soluble stuff, not water-soluble organics. This is dry amendments. This is the soil has to do the work. The microbes have to do the work. The bacteria has to do the work. So it takes time. What I'm putting on here now will not be doing anything for me or my plants for at least a couple weeks. So we want to front load it. Depending on what exactly I have at the time to do my top dressing will kind of depend on what I'm doing. Other times I'd be top dressing with some fungal compost that I really like from the Soil Makers. That was something that I just recently added to my repertoire. And of course, my own homemade worm castings. I would definitely recommend anybody that's doing this organic gardening to get a worm bin of some kind and compost your own stuff. It's a great feeling to be able to provide yourself with your own stuff, making your own seeds, making your own compost, making your own ferments. So you don't have to rely in case, who knows, something happens and none of this is available. Plus, you really get to tune it into your own way that you like to do it, your own, what you find works for you. And I think it is a very important thing to be self-sufficient. I don't add a bunch of worm castings. We're measuring with our heart here. I think I've got three handfuls, not even really handfuls. And what you see me doing is I'm just kind of not even scratching. I'm just kind of working this into that material that I just chopped and dropped. Now, in this case, I do have two types of bokashi. I've currently run out of my normal bokashi, but we've got this. I've got this from Build a Soil. This is made by a different company called Growing Organics. They have a lot of good stuff. They are very reputable. Definitely recommend if you're not able to make your own. I have yet to really branch out and try different types of bokashi. I've pretty much stuck to them. And until I can make my own, they will be the ones that I use until I find a local source. So it says a 1/3 cup per 15 gallons of soil. And this is somewhere around, I would say if it was full, we're looking at about 10 gallons. So I would say we're probably somewhere around 7-ish. So again, measuring with our heart, I'm going about that much. So, and what I'm doing with this is just lightly sprinkling it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to cover as much of an area. This is all stuff that is inoculated with bacteria. This is flowering components on here. It looks like it says post-fermentation. So after they've made it into bokashi, looks like their ingredients they have on here is organic rice bran. We got molasses and lactobacillus. So that's really lactic acid bacteria labs is really what's doing a lot of that work. Then after that, it looks like they put some biochar inoculated with root-wise biophos. So this is stuff to kind of help flowering plants and stuff like that. Again, maybe with using bokashi and auto flowers. Again, this is me just kind of just talking just to talk. It being a flowering component would be beneficial for them. So maybe I might just stick to this if I notice this round seems to be better with them. Then we'll stick to this type of bokashi that has more flowering components. As you can see, We just did a very, very light top dressing. You really can't see much after I've scratched it in. You can see a little bit of the bokashi in there. Again, spreading it out very thin. I'm not having it clumped up in any layers or anything. And that was it. We just put a little bit of craft blend, a little bit of bokashi, and a few handfuls of our worm castings. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do for top dressing on here. Now, what I will do from here is I will get a little bit of water, and we're just going to saturate the top real quick. And that is going to activate everything that we've kind of put in there. It's going to activate our bokashi and then get our craft blend and all of that in a nice environment that it wants to start breaking down. We've now completed our top dressing. We're going to fill up our chapin. I'm just using regular water. This is me and only me. I do like to use goodies, ferments, or adding different things into my water soluble, vegetative or whatever it may be. But when I'm top dressing, the first initial top dressing like this, I am just wanting to kind of glue it in with regular water, maybe a microbe or something like that. I just don't want to overload the plant by giving it too much at once. So, and again, like I said, we're not doing this to completely water the plant. I am just using it as a activation for what we just top dressed. So, boom. We have now done everything we need to do to get her ready for the rest of her run. Now, here is my cover that I like to use. This is made by a gentleman called New Moon, and he does a lot of different types of products. The containers that you see me, the bags, they're all made from him. Boom. And just like that, we're working her in there. Normally, I like to plant directly right where that is, but because we had to plant two, it is what it is. So she's off to the side just a little bit more than I'd like. But now we're going to take our rip cord or our cinch cord, and we're going to tighten this down just like that. And then we've got our little keeper right there that is going to keep it nice and tight. And then a lot of times there's a little bit of this extra. I like to tuck it right underneath there just so I don't have it hanging. I'll find a way to trip over it. So we keep that off to the side there. And then I'm going to zip this up till it's fairly close. And like I said, this is kind of pulling her over because of where I had that. By probably a couple hours, she's going to be standing straight up. And she'll just have a little bend in there. So that's it. We have now top dressed it. That's what I do with most of them. If you watched one of my last videos, I had done a different top dressing. I had some fungal compost, and I actually didn't add any craft blend to that, but I may do that. And maybe, you know what, we're gonna give her just a little bit. But again, she's pretty far along, so I don't want to give her too much, and then we'll end up with some other issues, some nitrogen toxicity, and she'll start looking real dark, real leathery. We're not going to want to give her too much, so I may just give her just a little bit sprinkle again, just to kind of get it through till the end, to hopefully not get into any deficiencies. Again, I definitely do not run my garden tight, and I run into deficiencies, and I don't always chase. I tend to chase my tail more often than not. It is what it is. That's the fun with gardening. And then sometimes I get some of these beautiful cultivars that don't have any issues, and they just seem to rock and roll and take off. So, but I think otherwise, that's pretty much everything that we got going on here. This was just a quick one. We're going to keep the rest of these ones going because I want to at least be able to see what we have going on with the structure of the plants and kind of their morphology, and see the way they grow before I absolutely need to cull them. And until I've got one, that we know that this plant is going to be what's going to be running in the box, we will let the rest of them grow. Even if we know they're males, we will just keep a keen eye on them to make sure that they do not open up and start pollinating the room. The rest of these ones will live on for the rest of the time, and we'll let her start raging. So I expect good things out of this. This one is the Yagmi. So this one was the Mandala effect times 91 grapefruit. The grapefruit, 91 grapefruit was the male. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they did together. Well, guys, that was just a quick little update. Hopefully that helped you out. All you got to do, keep your eye on the garden and pay attention, and I think you'll be safe. Peace.